The first thing that I would do when I winterize is I would take a few things out. It's going to be these Gorilla Gloves, even though they don't weigh much. This rain shell, Columbia, weighs about a pound. And I'd probably take out the Tyvek rain suit because it adds some bulk and it's really redundant with what I'm going to be carrying. So these things come out and some other things go in. The first thing I'd be adding is a 4-foot roll of Reflectix. This is 24 inches long, or about 4 inches wider than my ridge rest sleeping pad down here. This can go underneath the ridge rest. It can be used in a different place than the ridge rest. Maybe the ridge rest is, you're using it as something to sit on the ground in camp, and this is in your hammock. But you can, overlay these so that you get a little bit more length. This is a 4-foot ridge rest, and this is a 4-foot. Now I could go to a 5-foot, which I also have, but I decided to go with the 4-foot just because I think it's very redundant. I've got a lot of options with this, and it really does help. Boy, you sit on this stuff and you kind of feel the heat being reflected back. It also eliminates cold spots in the hammock, anywhere that maybe I fall off of the skinnier rest here. So that would be one thing. This weighs 6.5 ounces. The next is a 5x7 tarp. This has blue on one side, and I was hoping to show you a reflective material on the inside. So all purpose. If I am in a situation where I can't hang the hammock, I can lay this on the ground, I can lay this on top of it, lay the ridge rest on top of that, put the hammock down, and it's a Hennessy hammock, so you sleep inside of it. That is, it's not open, it's protected by bug mesh, so it's got screening there to get you out of the mosquitoes. You could tie the top of the hammock up so that you get a little ceiling or a little height in the middle of it, and you can sleep on the ground very comfortably in a hammock, bug-free. So bug-free is kind of important out here. Mosquitoes aren't typically bad all the time, but we've got other critters and crawlies out here that you don't want to wake up within your sleeping bag. So it's I think I sleep better if I'm in a tent or an enclosed system of some type. When the hammock is hung in a tree, it doesn't bother me as much because nothing's typically going to be getting up in there except flying critters. But if you have to sleep on the ground, it's nice to have an enclosed system. Alright, so there's a couple of items of the winterizing. When it comes to clothes, I'm going to probably take the silk long legs out and put the polypros in there. So this would go underneath my my pant. I'd also go from that light Columbia style pant to more of a, this is a 511 tack light that I'm wearing here. These have been in a lot of videos, and I've worn this type of pant a lot. They work really good. They do pull moisture away, and they don't stay wet like cotton pants do. So I would probably be wearing a polypro just like this underneath this with a rain shell on top of this heavier pant if necessary. Okay, speaking of that, this is an old Remington rain shell, or a pant that I've had for a long time now. It snaps and zips down here at the bottom. It's a dual layer, so you do get some insulative properties there. It's a bit heavy, but rather than go out and buy a brand new, Dry Ducks 2-piece system, I can utilize what I have, and these are really good. I've plowed through a lot of that wet grass out hunting in the morning, and it does really well. I've also been in a lot of rainstorms with these, but I've had these for, oh gosh, pushing, I don't know, 6 to 10 years. I've had them a long time, and they've served me really well. Again, I do treat these with, this is the one that I've been using lately, this durable water repellent, Techron, with Techron. It seems to work really good, and I treat all of my rain gear and my bag and everything with that. Next thing I would wear is some Gore-Tex gloves. This is just something that I've had a long time, but they fit me really well. And they have about 200 grams of thinsulate inside. They're still pretty articulated. I've got pretty good dexterity as long as I keep that hand warm underneath, but they shed water like crazy. They are Gore-Tex, and they've got kind of a leather palm, not the lightest thing, but for cold wet stuff. These work pretty good. Okay, the next thing that I would have in my winter kit is a little neoprene glove like this. This one's made by Illusion, I think. Yeah, Illusion. And you can see it's got a Velcro closure here at the wrist, so if you tighten that up and you put your hand inside of water, the water can't drip down into the rest of your hand. It stays suspended here. All you do is tip your hand, shake it a little bit, and the water comes out. So you can get that nice and snug there. There's also no way water can get in anywhere else. I believe it's 2mm material. So it works really good, and where I got my experience with these was, again, cleaning pools in the wintertime. Your hands are just freezing cold, and you still have to have a lot of dexterity. You still have to be able to reach down into swimming pool pumps and that sort of thing. And you're using that aluminum pole, which gets really slippery with many types of gloves. With these neoprene style, you have real good grip on everything still, and it works really good. These have 2 winters of pool use on them, and they still look and feel like brand new. They're really warm. On the downside, they don't breathe very well. So as long as it's real cold out and your hand isn't sweating, you're not going to have a moisture problem, or it'll be minimized. If it's a little warm and you have this on continuously, you're going to get some moisture in there. Now, it's very easy to turn the glove inside out and let it dry, wash it, and then dry it. That works just fine, but just something to note there. All right, we mentioned those little hot hands. I stuck 4 or 5 more in here because in the winter I might want one of these every single night. If I don't use it, no big deal, but if I have it, it's there. The other thing, I've added another 6 or 7 hot chocolates in here. That'll give me an extra hot chocolate at nighttime before bed. I'm not a coffee person, but I'll drink hot chocolate morning and evening when I'm chilly. It's a nice treat. Put some sugar in your system, and it's got some electrolytes in it too, so really nice for wintertime. Typically I wouldn't be crawling into bed with hot stuff in my stomach in the rest of the seasons because I'm typically hot. In fact, if it's above 70 degrees, I'm normally sweating a little bit, so I just generate a lot of heat and don't need that extra hot liquid in me. Alright, the next thing, this is just an old polypropylene hunting beanie that I have. It works really good. It's got a few holes from the fire in it. It's been burned a couple times, but it still works fine. What I would do is I would have this cap on my head. This is very thin material. That's that Omni-Sheild, Columbia Omni-Heat, I guess it's called. Omni-Sheild is rainwear. And then I would pull this down on top of it. But it's got a lot of length to it, so I can pull this down over the back of my neck pretty far, covering all my ears and the back of my neck, which is where I would get cold back there. So that's what I would add to that. And the last thing, this is my Gore-Tex E-Wex. And of all the different hunting wear that I've worn over the years, this seems to be about as good as anything. And it seems to hold up really well because of the material of the shell. It's very durable. It's got pockets in the sleeves. This one is considered a long version, so it kind of comes down, and it will come down over my waist and then skirt out a little bit, so that way when the rain is dripping onto it and it gets to the bottom edge of the jacket, it kind of drips out and away from me. On the downside, and it is hooded. It's got a really nice hood with a little visor over it here. It's a great system. It is Gore-Tex, in case somebody didn't know that. It's a full Gore-Tex system, and it's got all the Gore-Tex stamped fabric in here. It's a genuine military E-Wex, and I just love this jacket. One of my hunting friends that I turned on to this jacket, it's pretty much all he wears now. He just loves his Gore-Tex E-Wex. It's just super durable, and it's a great desert setup with all the thorns and briars and everything, and it's a great woodland setup. So, as I was going to say, the downside is that it is rather heavy. It's 2.2 pounds in all, but again, I took that 1 pound Columbia shell out to get this and this. So altogether, all of this weighs 6 3/4 pounds. but by shedding the weight that I did with the Tyvek rain suit, the gloves, and the Columbia jacket, it still keeps me just a hair under 50 pounds. So right up to my limit of 50 pounds, but still just a hair under it, which we're meeting goal there. With regards to the DWR treatment, let me show that to you really quick. I just want to show you how effective it is. Okay guys, I've got a bucket of water and I've got my left hand here in this Gore-Tex glove. And remember, the Gore-Tex lining is inside, so it has nothing to do with the way that the water sheds. But you can see how repellent the DWR is. You shake your hand and the material just about dries itself. So it's extremely repellent, and I put this on everything and I maintain it. My friend Campfire Talk recently posted something on the channel and talking about the DWR. He's exactly right. I mean, it's good stuff, but you do have to maintain this type of coating, and the more you use it, the more friction that it has on the surface. Like if you're constantly stuffing and unstuffing it into your sack, the more often you'll have to treat it. Most of my gear I can treat once a year, but if I know that I'm going out somewhere, or like when I went on my Alaska trip, I put a fresh coat of DWR on everything. So maybe the stuff that I'm using a lot, like this Omni-Sheild Columbia wear here, this is kind of my go everywhere. I'll stuff it in my EDC. It's one of those things that I always have. Well, because it gets so much use just carrying around, stuffing and unstuffing, I'll treat this a couple times a year just to make sure that I'm not going to have a problem when I get out there. Alright, so we got the winterizing out of the way. Let's go ahead and talk about summerizing. My kit already, just because of the climate where I live, it's sort of already summerized. I've got most of what I need. I even carry some stuff that I don't need, but I don't know what the weather's going to be out here sometimes. You can speculate about what it's going to be, but depending on if you're at high altitude or lower elevations, you just don't know what you're going to need. Generally speaking, it's summarized already. What I might do if I know that I'm hiking in June, July, or August is take the two 1.5 liter water bottles that you saw earlier, that was a smart bottle, and replace those with a 2 liter soda bottle of this style. That gives me 1 more liter of water and still fits just fine in my system. The reason I have to carry that kind of water is because this is a 7-day wilderness kit that is kind of an unknown. And I'm not saying I have 7 days of water. In fact, that 6 liters of water that I have is about 1 day's worth of water here in the most extreme conditions, and easy to go through. In summertime, I wouldn't even move during the daytime. Wouldn't even move. I would only move at nighttime here, and that would be by moonlight or flashlight. So yeah, depending on where you are here, it's really difficult to find water. A lot of the seeps are not running year-round, and the washes are, of course, only temporary. In fact, on my topo maps of various areas, I've got real water, I call it, that is in seeps and rock seeps, that type of thing. I've got those marked in blue or highlighted in blue, and then everything else that is a pretend a water source, I call it, real or pretend, I have marked in red. I can get water there at certain times of the year, but they're often dry. And I would say that on any given topo map, every time that you see a little blue trickle of water somewhere, 8 or 9 times out of 10, that's not a year-round source. It's just a trickle after a rainstorm, or it might be active for half of the year and not the other half. Right now, there's hardly any water out there in the area that I live in. Again, the places that I frequent, I have water marked on the maps, but the place where I did my owl adventure series and the owls and hawks out there, the closest water that I have to that little general area is about 5 or 6 miles away for a permanent water source. And okay, you think 5 or 6 miles, that's not too bad. Well, it can take you half a day to cover that 5 or 6 miles because the terrain is very difficult to cross. You can look at it and you think, oh, it's flat desert. It's nothing like that. It's not flat, and most of the times there's not trails that are going to go specifically to that area. So that's why I'm so focused on water, because with this type of a kit, I'm covering the unknowns, and and I have to refill or replenish that water that I'm carrying pretty frequently. So hope that clears up a few things if anyone was wondering. The other thing that I might cover really quick is you'll notice that I don't have any heavy water containers. I don't have my Gaio designed stainless steel bottle in this kit. I don't have a heavy Nalgene bottle, that type of thing. And you might think, well, you really ought to have something more bulletproof. Well, in some ways, yeah, that person's right who says that. On the other hand, I've kind of bulletproofed my situation by carrying multiples of everything. So I've got a hydration bladder, and I've got 2 other containers, and with my water filter kit that we're going to review earlier, I've got 2 more water containers in there. So I've got a total of 5 water containers, plus the odor protection sacks that I have that carry my food. Those are completely watertight. They're very thick and durable, and if I needed to fill a bag, it would probably hold a gallon or 2 of water. It would hold at least that. That's a big bag, but the size that I have. But if I needed it to do that, I could put water in those bags. So the water that I do carry is protected pretty much internally inside the backpack. I've got the protection of the side pockets over it, the protection of the frame from the back, and I usually have clothing or other things stuffed in front of it here. So it's kind of protected on 3 sides, and if it does fall over into a cholla cactus or something like that, hopefully it wouldn't penetrate into the plastic. Now if it did, I still have options there. I can use super glue to make a repair to the outside of the container. I can also use Gorilla Tape or a tent repair tape, which I guess I didn't mention that, but I think it's in my hammock kit. So I think that covers everything for now, guys. Next we're going to talk about food getting gear, traps, and other devices that I could harvest food with. So I didn't have time for it this one, obviously, but that'll be video 6. Thanks for watching. Take care.